Yeah, that's fine. Sometimes, yeah. So don't be shy. Yeah. Yeah, I heard of this crowd.
I think we're going to get started, everyone. Thanks for coming. All right. Is there anyone here for the first time? I see mostly familiar faces, but yeah, right there. Anyone else new? I think so. Yeah, right. Excellent. So we're going to be talking about meal preparation and planning tonight. And so first off, I want to pass out, everyone gets a handout and a recipe book. And so we'll pass those out to everybody here. I can help with that as well. Yeah, it's PCRM recipe book. Yeah. You already have it? Okay, you already have it. Okay. And then you want a recipe book? That one too? Yeah. Yeah. So for those online, there's we can share actually you can follow along on the website. I'll go ahead and talk about that before. Do you want to help pass these out too so I can keep talking? Oh, thanks. Because we're having a problem with pulling up the livelifestylemedicine.com website of all the websites on the church computer here. We can't seem to get it to pull up. And I usually will have it up here so we can go over the handout I'm going to go over. But we were hoping that somebody in the online Zoom can share their screen and pull up the website, because I can pull it up on my phone. We can pull it up anywhere, just not on the church computer for some reason. We couldn't last week either. And we were trying to troubleshoot that and haven't been able to figure that out. Even clearing the cookies and the cache, all this IT stuff, and we can't seem to pull up the website. But I have it. I'll describe everything on that handout with all the resources on the livelifestylemedicine.com website, which will has all the meal preparation and planning stuff on there. And so I'll explain what each thing is. But yeah, and so those of you on the online, you can pull up the website, livelifestylemedicine.com, if you'd like, have it down in the corner, and can actually go through in real time. And then also it's being recorded, so you can actually go on and just listen as I go through each thing. But it's also, a lot of it is on the website tutorial that's recorded on the homepage of the livelifestylemedicine.com website. You'll see how to navigate around the website and see all the different resources. But I do want to go over this and the meal preparation and planning. And then after I kind of go through this handout, then Tamara, our Food for Life instructor, she's going to give some cooking tips and tricks and stuff on as well. And then Charlie will show a whole bunch of really beautiful food pictures of all different what whole food plant-based meals look like. If you're doing it, I guess the real perfect way. Yeah. Like, so don't let Charlie's his pictures, don't let that be the enemy of good. Don't let perfection be the enemy of good. So it doesn't have to be that immaculate, but it is beautiful, his food pictures. So anyway, so yeah, livelifestylemedicine.com. And then on the resources page, so when you look at the top of the livelifestylemedicine.com website, you'll see a bunch of tabs at the top. And like subscribe to the newsletter, and of course you're on the home page, and then you'll see all kinds of tabs at the top. You'll see one that says resources, and so you would click on the resources, and so you see here it says resources page or tab. These are the things we're going to go over that are on the resources page. And so the first thing you'll come to on the resources page, when you click on that, you'll see something that says handouts from classes. And so all the next things that are down below handout from classes that are not bolded are all under handouts from classes. And so I'm just going to explain what each of these things are. So the traffic light handout, it's actually it's in English and in Spanish. I use that at work every single day. Every single one of my patients gets a what I call the traffic light handout, and you can have a copy for yourself there. It's in PDF form, so you can print it for yourself or just look at it whenever you want on the website. And it has the green light, yellow light, red light foods. And so, and then on one side is English, one side is Spanish. So if you know anyone that speaks Spanish, they can have that there. And that's just a kind of a way to look at. That's what I explain to every one of my patients. Like, green light foods mean go eat as much as you want, and that's your fruits and vegetables and beans and intact whole grains. So all your unprocessed whole plant foods. And then yellow light means kind of in moderation. And yellow light is your like pasta, whole grain bread, peanut butter, nuts and seeds, pasta, things like that, for example, those which are also healthy, mostly all whole plant foods as well, except for maybe a minimally processed like pasta and bread, for example, right? So that's more the in moderation kind of yellow light, kind of think of it that way. And then red light is, so essentially animal products, dairy products, cheese, and then processed foods. And red light, you'll see on there's percentages, and this is kind of what comes from like the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. It doesn't, it doesn't mean you have to be 100% no red light foods. It's just you get to choose. Like Charlie and I always say, we're not policemen. No one's judging anybody. Just because you eat some red light foods doesn't mean there's anything wrong. You're not doing anything wrong. It's just try to get most of your calories from green light foods, moderate amount of yellow light foods, and try to minimize the red light as much as you can. It's kind of like Dr. Greger has it. His is slightly different because he has a different definition, but like, because I think he even has like unprocessed animal products. Like I think Dr. Greger's even has it as a yellow light food, like say fish or chicken would be, because it's not processed. So he has that as a yellow light, because it's kind of like the way he look at it is you can get away with running yellow lights quite a bit, and you won't probably crash very often, right? But red lights, it's playing Russian roulette a little bit. If you run the red lights all the time, you might have some health consequences, right? If you're doing that a lot. So I like to kind of look at it that way too. But so yeah, red light foods, animal products, dairy products, processed oils, processed sugars and flours, and things that are just processed, as much as highly processed foods. So that's just kind of a good way to start off looking at it. And again, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. I always say to patients too, what you do 90% of the time is going to make the biggest difference. But we all have our own health goals. If you're not on medications, you're healthy, you're feeling pretty good, and you don't have any chronic medical conditions, you can probably get away with eating some red light foods and even a fair amount of yellow light foods, but you're still trying to get mostly the green light. But if you're on medication, you've had a heart attack, a stroke, you have diabetes, we've done a lot of damage to our bodies the older we are. Depends on how many years we've eaten a certain way or had a certain lifestyle, then it kind of probably if you want to get better results, then you probably want to go a little bit further on the spectrum, more green light and yellow light and even less red light. And then some of my patients that are trying to avoid another bypass, a stent, things like that, you're better off just completely getting rid of red light foods. But again, you get to make that choice. So that's kind of the essence of that handout. And then the next one is the evidence-based eating guide. That's Dr. Greger. And so it's kind of like, we'll talk about the Daily Dozen, but this is kind of it's a PDF file that's saved on there. And it's kind of has his traffic light system, like I was just explaining, but it's also got lots of tips and tricks, and it's a really good guide there. It's all there for you for free. And then a food substitution chart. I think that one's from PCRM, Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, and it basically has meat substitutes and dairy substitutes and cheese substitutes and egg substitutes and things you can kind of what one egg equals this much flax meal with water or aquafaba, which is the water from like garbanzo beans, for example. And so a little food substitution chart there. And then the next one is the meal building basics. And I created this one kind of going off, when I talked about my story last week, is that when I first started this in 2012, over 13 years ago now, I really kind of struggled with, I got cookbooks, plant-based cookbooks and things. And I kind of really struggled because I wasn't much of a cook and didn't know that much about food or cooking, and still don't, I don't think, but I know a lot about nutrition, but not maybe so much about foods and cooking. And that's where I leave to other people that's their skill set, a little bit better on that. And so when I struggled cooking different recipes the first couple years. Actually, I did it for about 3 years before my wife joined me, and she's much better cook. And so the first 3 years, that's where the genesis of the Meal Building Basics handout was. Because if somebody would have given me this handout when I was first starting out and cooking all these different plant-based recipes and kind of failing at it, and not things weren't timed out right, or it was just too complicated for me. And so if somebody would have given me this handout, it would have been really beneficial. And so what it is not even really cooking a recipe. It's just like you take a starch as your base. So like a potato, sweet potato, beans, even pasta, rice, just some sort of starchy vegetable, whole grain, and then adding vegetables to it, and then different kinds of toppings and sauces and things like that. And so it's just a really good way to kind of, oh, okay. So it's like there's like a pasta theme, a potato theme, Asian stir fry theme. So it's just kind of, you don't even really have to follow a recipe. It's just like, oh, just food, and just add these different ingredients and things to it. So check out that handout. It's just a good kind of reminder of how simple it can be. You don't have to buy a bunch of cookbooks and follow a bunch of recipes if you don't want to. And I have never been picky about food. I could eat kind of the same thing. Like I do grain bowls all the time, or take a certain like farro or barley or brown rice or quinoa or some grain, and then I have a whole bunch of mixed greens, and then I dump on a dollar can of beans on there, and I do have different. I've made some of the sauces that Tamara, the ranch she's done, and some of the other sauces, and I just I'm a really saucy kind of guy. I'm terrible like that. Back when I was eating the regular diet, my idea of a salad for me was iceberg lettuce and tomatoes and cucumber, and then I'd dump like a cup of ranch on it. That was my salad like 13, 14 years ago. But now it's like I still love the dressing, but now it's a healthy dressing, and not just a bunch of garbage. So yeah, check out that handout. Just a really easy way to kind of get started, especially if you're getting started. And then meal planning ideas is a little bit more involved handout I created. It has a whole bunch of pretty simple recipes on it, and just kind of also with themes. And it's kind of more what I tell people when they're getting started too, like because sometimes going to something really foreign, like if you're normally eating spaghetti and lasagna and kind of traditional recipes most of us grew up on, and you suddenly just dive into some of the plant-based cookbooks, it can be something that's super different and super different taste profile and things like that. And sometimes that's great because it's healthy and you want something different, but sometimes that can be really foreign and really kind of difficult. And so sometimes when people are starting out, I say, hey, kind of stick with things that you're familiar to, and then there's things you can substitute in and out to make it a healthier, more plant-based version of the lasagna, of the chili, of the spaghetti, or whatever it is. And so it kind of has recipes along that kind of vein. It's like, okay, things that are familiar, and sandwiches and different things that you're just kind of used to, but how to make it a healthier plant-based version of that. And then also then you'll see a top 10 meal prepping tips video. So Sunshine is actually a trained chef, and she's actually done some cooking demonstrations for us in the past. She's kind of busy with graduate school and stuff now, so she hasn't been doing it as much lately. But when we did cooking demos at the YMCA, she did a couple of cooking demos there, and so she recorded this video. It's like maybe 10 or 15 minutes or so, and she has top 10 meal prepping tips. And so check out that video. It's there, and so that's helpful. And then the basic foundation of making a tasty meal is it's a really simple short handout of kind of a base of how to start with a different grain, and then adding certain vegetables and things like that. Kind of what most recipes use as a start of a plant-based recipe. That's a good little short handout. And then there's a whole bunch of no oil salad dressing recipes there. One disclaimer: I think there's 34 recipes there, and I think there are actually 2 that have oil. There are Asian ones that kind of snuck in there because it's just one I had created a long time ago, and it's a scanned-in list of recipes. But I think 32 out of the 34 are oil-free. So if you just want lots of great salad dressing recipes, those are there. And then next down, so now we're out of the handouts from classes, but we're still on that resources page. And there's helpful apps to download, and that's where Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen is. So whether you have an Android or an iPhone, you can download it right there from the website. And then the next drop down on the resources page is the links to cookbooks. So there's a whole bunch of cookbooks there. We're not having any financial ties to any of these resources. It's just kind of stuff that we've used, we found helpful for class attendees, our patients, things like that. And there's links right to Amazon. You can get them there if you want to. So there's a whole bunch of different cookbooks. And then links to websites with recipes and meal plans. There's like Forks Over Knives, PCRM, Engine 2 Diet. So there's a whole bunch of different, there's like 3 or 4 there where you can click on them and it'll show you, like you can sign up and get some of them. I think Forks Over Knives, they charge, I think it's either $5 or $6 a month. And what they do with theirs is they send you the recipes for the week, and it has a shopping list and everything. So it kind of, here's what you can cook for the week, and here's all list of all the ingredients, and here's makes your own shopping list that this is what you need. And so there are those there as well. And then there's also next is a free plant-based cooking class. It's online, it's through Switch, and you can sign up for that, and it's on an ongoing basis. It's a free online plant-based cooking class. So that's another one. And then there's another section that's a plant-based meal ideas for traveling. So it's a good article that kind of gives you tips for snacks you can take when you're traveling, and other foods that you can take with you traveling. So that's good. And then the next page. So now we're on to the recipes. So actually these, I think I explained that right, that it's the links, the apps to download, the links to cookbooks, the recipes and meal plans. Those are also, they're all tabs under the resources page. But then there is a separate tab now for recipes page you can go to. That's also at the top of the homepage of the website. And there's a whole section there for holiday meal planning and recipes there. It's really great it was done by Mary McDougall, who's been one of the original plant-based cooks since the 1970s, so for a long time. And she has this really great whole bunch of recipes, and it's all geared around holidays, so whether it's Thanksgiving or Christmas especially. So it's really helpful for that time of year. And so it's a whole meal plan for the holidays. And it's really great. Besides the list of ingredients and all that, she actually gives you a timeline. Okay, like 3 days before do this, 2 days before do this, 1 day before do this. And it really makes it good if you're going to be creating a whole holiday meal for family and stuff. And then there's also a quick reference guide to cooking whole grains there. It just like basically shows you how much grain, how much water, how much cooking time, because all the different grains are a little bit different. And I actually have, when I do my bicycle tours, I actually have them saved on my phone, because we do a lot of one pot meals when I'm doing my bike tours. Like we're riding 60, 70 miles a day, and then we go to the last little grocery store before we get to the campsite. And then we have, usually I'll pack the grains with me in a little bag with all measured out and everything. But when we get to the grocery store, so I already have my grains. I usually will get some vegetables, just lots of different kinds of vegetables. And then I'll get like a can of beans, or a couple cans of beans if I'm cooking for my other 2 buddies. And then I'll boil up the grains. We call them the one pot meal. And so I'll boil the grains, and then usually, so we'll take that off the burner when the grains are done, and then you put a frying pan on the propane, and then you saute up your vegetables, and then you throw on the beans and get it all, and all the seasonings and everything. Then that back into the pot with the grains, and then of course we usually have maybe a little dark chocolate and stuff like that for dessert. But then I'll always buy like my banana for the next morning, and I usually just get like the Bob's Red Mill muesli, and I'll have that. I usually have that packed with me. So it'll be like have that big dinner, and then I'll have the muesli and banana for breakfast, and then some coffee, because you can get we have actually those little drip coffee things that you just boil some water and you just drip it over it just attaches to your cup, and you can drip your coffee right into it. It's pretty cool stuff when you're bike touring. And then during the day, we're just, I'm usually eating I usually have a loaf of bread and peanut butter and jelly and nuts and things like that, just to kind of keep me going. And those are all yellow light foods, right? Because I'm burning tons of calories out riding my bike. I'm not going to sustain myself eating salads and and I love, but I really crave that savory meal at dinner time, because you get so tired of like the sweet, because you had your banana with your muesli for breakfast, and then you're snacking on nuts, and you're eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and stuff during the day. Sometimes we'll stop at a grocery store and I'll get like a loaf of wheat bread, and then I'll get hummus for like mayonnaise, and then it's replaces the mayonnaise, and I'll put on like avocado and tomatoes and cucumbers, and make big make 2 or 3 sandwiches, because so that's what I do a lot that's wanted to share that when I'm out riding bikes. It's been a couple years since my last tour. Rode down to the Redwoods and rode all the way down to Klamath from here, but that was a couple of years ago was my last one. But I've done a lot of those kinds of tours, eating plant-based, over the last 13 years. So just wanted to share a little bit of that with you. And then I talked about and then Mary McDougall, besides the holiday meal planning and recipes, she has another handout that's really good, cooking tips and tricks. And she just read through that. There's just so many, just from decades of cooking this way and living this way. A lot of good tips and tricks for cooking. And then actually there's further down on the recipes page, there's a bunch of recipes that kind of over the last 6-7 years that people have shared, like either they've been at the potluck and they've shared the recipes, we posted them to the website, or we've had then further down we actually have some of the recipes that Tamara did for one of the cooking classes. I think it was last summer. I have that handout there that has like the couple of the ranch dressing I was talking about, that's there. But there's not, our recipe website's not recipe section on our website's not super robust, because we had people posting things, but there's so many cookbooks and so many resources already online. It seems kind of laborious to just download a bunch of recipes, and there's copyright issues. You have to get permission to post somebody's recipe and on a separate website and stuff. So there are a few there, but but that section's not super robust, but there's a few things there. But so any questions about any of that? So all this so far, there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of resources, and I guess that's the point is, spend time. It's a good place to just bookmark livelifestylemedicine.com on your computer and just refer to it. And if you haven't been on it very much, definitely start off with the website tutorial, because you'll see kind of all these things again. And there's tons of other stuff, videos and all kinds of stuff, the recordings of the classes and everything. So definitely take advantage of that website. I spent a lot of hours posting stuff. I didn't build the website, because I'm not much of that's not my thing. But the gal that Tammy Parks, who came to these classes when I had the classes back in 2018 to 2020 here, she built the website because she actually has a master's in online education, and so she built the website, and then she taught me, ran me through some trainings and taught me how to post content and things like that, so I can do that. But as far as design and all that, someday maybe we'll have somebody that's good at that wants to volunteer and make the website look more professional and stuff. That would be great, because it probably looks like, I think I had somebody that was more critical give me an honest opinion. It looks like a weekend project in someone's garage, Yeah, it's like, so they said it was great, lots of great content, but I get it. I'm not a web designer, so we wasn't trying to be too mean, but it was just like, maybe, but plus I get people say, oh, for this much money, we can do this with your website and stuff like that. But yeah, because that's the way it is out there in the world. But yeah, hopefully that's helpful. And Tamara, do you want to come up and share some stuff, and just to make sure everyone has one of these handouts and everyone has a recipe book that wants one? So I got those for free because we're part of PCRM now. Just a quick story on that is that so they're probably 6, 7, 8 years ago maybe, when the Plant Pure Nation documentary came out. It was kind of a sequel to Forks Over Knives. I don't know, a lot of you have probably seen Forks Over Knives. And there was a sequel to it it was called Plant Pure Nation, T. Colin Campbell, and that they did that documentary. And it was more of a political action, kind of trying to get, nutrition and stuff in kind of into communities and things like that. It was kind of the focus of that particular movie. And what came out of that movie was something called Plant Pure Pods. What the pods are is community organizations around the country and around the world trying to, get communities just like us here, communities of people promoting, whole food, plant-based nutrition and to provide support. And so when I did the T. Colin Campbell Center for Nutrition Studies plant-based nutrition certification back in 2015. So before I got board certified in lifestyle medicine, which was in 2019, there was part of that. And so I joined. There was one in Eugene. There was a Plant Pure Pod in Eugene. And about the time I joined, I found it and joined, because I actually went to the premiere of the Plant Pure Nation movie when it came out. It was up in Portland. We were living in Portland at the time. And it was, so T. Colin Campbell was there and all that. So we actually watched the premiere of it. And then the pods came out of that. And then when I joined the pod, the gal that was in charge of the Eugene pod was like moving or wasn't going to do it anymore. So she gave it to me. So I was kind of the head of the pod. But it was kind of like you were encouraged to do things like we're doing with the Live Lifestyle Medicine program. And so it was kind of like, well, I'm already kind of starting to do some of this stuff. And so it just kind of sat there, and I kind of linked it up with Live Lifestyle Medicine. And then so those had grown and whatnot, and it grew to the point where the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine decided to kind of adopt it and sponsor it. So now we're Plant-Based Eugene, and we're part of PCRM's program, and it's what's the name of it now? It changed. It's not PAWS anymore. It's just the plant-based communities is what it is. And so and like Debbie Coulthard's the nurse. She's one of our members, and she goes to the meeting, and she's kind of the co-leader, and she goes to the meeting every month and things like that. So anyway, when we joined, they gave us all kinds of swag and things like that, and it gave us these recipe books and stuff. So I just wanted to know if any of you are familiar with the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. They're really huge organization. They were responsible for getting because they're into animal advocacy as well as vegan plant-based nutrition, and so they got successfully shutting down the monkey lab that's in Portland through OHSU, because they were not treating the animals correctly, and there's so much research technology now that you don't need to use animals for a lot of these different studies. And so in fact, the National Institutes of Health is now not like funding animal studies anymore. It's like they're pulling away from it, because there's so much good technology now that's better, more accurate for human health than using the animals. There's actually things like on microchips, you can have like a mitochondria, you can have basically human cells mimicked on a computer chip, because the technology is so advanced, and it's actually more accurate than doing studies on animals, even rats and things like that. So it's pretty amazing, huh? Yeah. So that's, yeah, we're comparing us to a rat, right? Yeah. And so it's kind of like we always talk about, even though we focus mostly on the nutrition here, there's also other reasons, good for the environment, good for the animals, good for sustainability. So there's like other reasons, because a lot of times I have patients that are younger, and they don't really care about the heart attack they might have when they're 50 or 60, but they do care about social justice. They care about animals. They care about the environment. So there's other reasons to go more plant-based than just the human health. So, you want to go ahead and come up now, Tamara? Yeah.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm Tamara. I apologize for my voice. It's not very good. And anyway, but I was doing taxes today, and so I did a lot of talking. So I will do my best. How many of you have already been in one of my classes? Yeah. How many have not? Okay, couple. Okay. So just quickly, because most everybody's heard my story more than once. I was diagnosed with macular degeneration in my early 20s, and I was told that I would be blind by the time I was 40, and there was nothing that could be done about it, and specifically nutrition could not help me. But luckily, I had a doctor that did encourage me, and I didn't believe that. And that's when I started researching nutrition for myself for my own sake. And actually, Dr. McDougall and Mary McDougall were one of my first resources. Her cooking skills are great, really delicious recipes and easy. So, fast forward, I'm 56 now, and I do not have macular degeneration. My eyes have not deteriorated. I completely changed my diet. And so I've continued with that for that reason and many others. So I have been trained by the Physicians Committee for Medicine for Food for Life to try to help people discover how to cook easy things that are delicious. And so just to kind of help with that aspect of eating. So there's a continuum like Scott spoke of. Just because something's vegan or plant-based doesn't mean it's healthy, but some people do start out there. I did use some transition foods, which we'll talk about, and then you can go all the way to the other end, which will be Charlie, his lovely meals. And so I'm just going to go through the list sort of and talk about what I eat and the ideas that I have. Usually, I eat what's called the power plate. I try to have about half of my plate fruits and vegetables, and then the other half kind of the build the meal idea. Either a grain, rice, or a potato, or sometimes pasta. And I usually start my bowl with a couple handfuls of greens of some kind. So I really like to get the organic mixed greens. I'm a fan of the farmer's market. So when that's going, I'll always be at the farmer's market choosing all kinds of different lettuces. And if you make your own and chop your own, it's much less expensive. But Costco has a really nice large container of mixed salad greens and then kales and other things like that. So generally, I'll fill my bowl with the greens and then I'll put the rice, brown rice, jasmine rice, or beans of any kind, black beans, kidney beans. I just try a variety of beans in my pantry and I just alternate them. And then I kind of shop by looking at what's in season and what looks good for my fresh vegetables. And so I have a large cutting board and I'll just chop up like a bell pepper, green onions, cilantro, parsley, dill, fresh dill, whatever happens to be there. And then I pile all of that on top. And then I usually have a sauce of some kind also, either the ranch or I have an Alfredo sauce or a nacho sauce. So I kind of build it that way. For breakfast, a lot of times I do have oatmeal and then I have some type of fruit. I really enjoy Costco has a large bag of organic blueberries that are really good. I also put in there hemp hearts and flaxseed and chia seed. And I usually have a spice mix that I keep in a jar that I've made myself, which is cinnamon, nutmeg, ginger, turmeric, just a touch, little black pepper, and kind of whatever you like. I shake that up. And so it's always available to put on my oatmeal. Or sometimes I'll cook sweet potatoes for breakfast. And so I like to sprinkle those with that spice. I also like to put the goji berries on my sweet potato or in my oatmeal. And I like to slice a banana on my sweet potato or oatmeal. Also, if you shred an apple, that's really delicious in oatmeal with a touch of maple syrup if you want a little sweetener and some raisins. And I just kind of change it up. Blueberries one day, shredded apple the next day, whatever you like. And then I always add the dried goji berries, sometimes raisins, whatever sounds good. Also, sometimes I make pancakes The recipe is on the website or in the newsletter, and it's very simple. It's just bananas, oatmeal, soy milk, baking powder, and a little maple syrup. You blend it up, and then you make the pancakes. And I usually just take frozen blueberries and just heat them in a pan on the stove and just slowly simmer them while I'm making all the pancakes. And then it's just a really nice fruit compote that's ready. Some people enjoy putting applesauce. Sometimes I do put peanut butter and sliced banana. Sometimes I enjoy a sourdough or organic bread with some peanut butter and bananas. If I know that I'm going to have kind of a long day, that really helps me stay full for a long time. There are some high fiber cereals that you can get. I usually don't eat box type cereal just because usually there's sugar or it's just not a lot of whole grain that I enjoy. So always read the ingredients on your cereals. It's tough these days to find a nice organic cereal, although I do get puffed wheat. It's just puffed wheat, and it's actually really inexpensive. So like a whole bag at Sundance is like $3.50. And so I do eat that occasionally, and I do put bananas and things in it because it usually doesn't stay with me too long. Organic soy milk is my favorite milk. You can also get rice milk, oat milk. There's all kinds of dairy-free milks to choose from now. Just be sure that you look at the ingredients and ensure that there's no added oil or any other additives that you don't want. I get my soy milk from Trader Joe's. It's water and organic soybeans, and that's all. I do make scrambled tofu. I think that is also on the website, and also potatoes. So I cook potatoes in an Instapot. You can also fill up a slow cooker and cook them overnight or all day. Same thing with sweet potatoes. You can put those in the slow cooker. And I usually have potatoes with chili on top or beans on top, or I chop them up into chunks and season them with any kind of spice that you like, smoked paprika, oregano, basil, everything but the bagel seasoning, and just kind of mix them all up and then bake them. And you don't need any oil, and they turn out really good. Of course, any kind of fruit in the morning. You can get veggie sausage. Typically, it is quite processed and it is going to have some fat. But if that's something that you really are going to miss, Morningstar has a vegan one, and there are a few other brands, and just make sure that they say vegan. Also, you can make a fruit smoothie. Although I don't drink too many smoothies, but it is a good option to get your greens in. Some people have a hard time getting a large amount of greens in their diet, so smoothie is really good for that. So chili, don't be afraid to use canned foods also. So you can make a big pot of beans in your Instapot or your slow cooker, but you can also get canned beans, and Costco has a really good selection of organic beans now, and so does Trader Joe's and also Grocery Outlet. So another thing I like to do is get refried beans, and Trader Joe's has organic corn tortillas. Actually, they have whole wheat white tortillas, and then Sundance and other places have organic corn tortillas. So I just take the tortillas and put refried beans over them. And then like tonight, I had some leftover rice, some leftover potatoes. I just chopped it up, mixed it up, put some salsa in there. Yes. Yep. So look at your ingredient label for sure. I found a brand at Grocery Outlet that's just beans. there's no lard in it, but that's a really good point. And like if you're going out to eat, you would want to ask if there are lard in the beans for sure. So I put the refried beans on the tortilla, sprinkle the potatoes and the rice that have been mixed with salsa to give it extra flavor, and then just put it in the dry pan. And I actually set a plate on it because that'll help it brown up. And then take the plate off, flip it, and then cut it into like quesadillas into 4, or you can roll them up into a burrito as well. I also try to, whatever I make a large amount of rice, a large amount of potatoes, large amount of chili, and then I can make dinner tonight and then like my husband's lunch for the next day, or that'll be lunch the next day. And you can also freeze things. So when you come home, you can just grab it. There are a lot more options for vegan, like hot dogs and deli meats, and those things are pretty much readily available now. Just again, make sure if you want to watch your fat intake, take a look at the ingredients on those. I do enjoy tofu and tempeh. So I usually get those from Costco, the tofu, or Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's has a really good package of tempeh. And you can crumble it up and make taco meat out of it, or I crumble it with walnuts and spices and kind of add it to spaghetti sauce to give it a little more texture. You can also cut it into strips and marinate it overnight in like a soy sauce, maple syrup, and then just dry fry it in your pan. And you can use it as strips with your scrambled tofu, or you can make a sandwich out of it. There used to be really,
What happens if it comes out too dry when you cook it that way? Does it?
for the which thing? Oh, okay. Well, I was talking about the tempeh, marinating the tempeh, but with tofu, I usually don't really marinate it, but what I've seen that is really good is like barbecue sauce, or I have cubed it and sprinkled it just with herbs and then air fried it. And it comes out really nice and chewy that way. And then when I scramble the tofu, I bake it in the oven. And so it usually doesn't dry out too bad. So generally I bake the tofu or air fry the tofu. That's right. So when I was talking about the dry frying pan, that was for the tempeh strips, which are a complete different texture than tofu. Okay, so veggie burgers. There are a lot of recipes online now to make your own veggie burgers. I usually make quite a few and freeze them, and that comes out perfectly. Soups, chilies, hummus is a good option for sandwiches, baked beans. Lasagna is Engine 2 Diet has a really good sweet potato lasagna that is really good and makes a large amount. And then going out to eat, if you're really trying to avoid oil, that's going to be tough. But generally, you can get rice and beans, at a Mexican restaurant. Italian is usually just going to be the plain marinara sauce for you. I went to Agate Alley with a great group of friends before the basketball game. And I thought, oh, great, I'm getting the falafel burger patty. I think it was deep fried. So it was like, oh, whoops. So sometimes that happens. And then snacks, the fruit. I always try to make the fruit accessible. Like I have an apple slicer. So just slicing the apple into 8 slices, washing the grapes. I have an orange peeler that you used to get from Tupperware that you can usually find anywhere now, that you just run it around the orange and it just peels off super easily. And then air popped popcorn. My niece really enjoys popcorn with nutritional yeast on it and just a little tiny bit of salt. And whenever I'm going to be traveling in the car, I like to, yes?
What's the best way to get the nutritional yeast to stick to the popcorn?
Repeat the question.
Oh, thank you. So Charity asked, how do we get the nutritional yeast to stick to the popcorn? We really don't. It's so, yeah, I've heard you can spray it with a bottle of water, which I never have. I just kind of sprinkle it on there, and then my niece will like scoop it out of there. She will eat it one way or the other. But yeah, you could try the fine mist. Have you tried it? It works? Okay. Pickle juice. Okay, I was talking, oh yeah, when I go traveling or on the long road trip, I take the traditional celery sticks, carrot sticks. I'll slice up my apple, put it in a big container, grapes, just making sure that I have things that are easily accessible and also filling. So also dates are sweet, and silken tofu can be used to make desserts. You can make desserts that are healthy. And I like to make a blueberry crisp, apple crisp, chocolate mousse. You can pretty much put into Google now, low fat, vegan chocolate, and you'll get all kinds of recipes. There's a lot of support out there. So when you're trying to find something to eat, and generally, we tend to eat kind of the same meals throughout the week. So just slowly replace what you're eating with something that's more healthy, and just kind of look around, go to the farmer's market, go to Sundance, and try some different produce. If you go to Sundance, pay attention to the prices, because they tend to have some things like dragon fruit that isn't grown here, and you can buy it there, but it's like $19.99 a pound. So you might not appreciate that, although it is delicious. But right now, there's these great big pomelos, and they're huge, and they're kind of like an orange together with a grapefruit, and their skin is really thick when you peel them, the pith. And so like my husband will open in the sections and just eat the inside. I'll eat the whole thing. Charlie will probably pull the rind off and eat that too. But yeah. Do you have a question? Or
Yeah, I was there, someone asked, about the sweet potato lasagna recipe, and where one would find a recipe for that.
okay, you can find the recipe for that at, it's not called Fire Engine 2, Rips. And yeah, if they go to engine2.com, or if they Google Rips sweet potato lasagna, they should be able to find it. Are there any questions about anything like substituting things? Okay. So I'm doing the cooking demonstration next week. Are there any requests? Like, what are you interested in? Don't say sweet potato lasagna. No, it's really good, but
Just one thing is the March newsletter just came out this evening, and so on that newsletter is Tamara's what she did in the last cooking class, which is you did the breakfast potatoes and the tofu scramble and then the pancakes. Yeah, so that's on the newsletter. Just came out this evening, so just for FYI.
no requests. Okay. You have a request?
What a good eggplant. Oh, eggplant.
The only thing I really make with eggplant, which I'm gonna change because they're so beautiful, is the eggplant how do you say it? Thank you. That's it. Baba ganoush. Eggplant hummus. Yeah. And then stir fries are really easy also, and a good way to use up whatever veggies that you might still have. And I just start mine with an onion, red onion, white onion, any onion, and then garlic. And then I start with like the carrots and the broccoli, put those in. And I usually use a little tamari or soy sauce. And then I put the lid on and let that steam. And then I'll add the next things that like the chopped up kale and the bell peppers and just kind of steam them all together. And then the garlic and also mushrooms. And then I usually make brown rice and then dump in there when everything is cooked. That's a nice way to use up veggies that you might have. Okay, I think that is that good. Okay, Charlie.
Okay, we need to get some food pictures up on the screen, and I'm going to share with you some of the food that I have that I'm so fortunate to be able to eat because I've got this wife who not only knows how to cook, but likes to eat plant-based. And she didn't know it wasn't always that way, but we could turn the lights down a little bit so people could see this a little bit easier. Remember what we try to follow. We are trying to follow Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen. We don't do it perfectly. We just try to incorporate into our diet approximately 3 servings of legumes. Legumes are what? Beans, lentils, chickpeas, split peas. Okay, we try to incorporate 3 servings of whole grains, oatmeal and rice and quinoa or buckwheat or whatever. We try to incorporate about 4 servings of fruit, 5 servings of vegetable, a serving of nuts, serving of spice of some sort. And so you'll look at these pictures and you'll say, well, how do you do that? And so we didn't start out like this. This is half of our breakfast. Have you ever been to a hotel and you went to the breakfast bar in the morning and there were just this unbelievable amount of different fruits and desserts and preparations, whatever it is? That's how I look upon our breakfast right now. We incorporate a lot of things which you don't have to incorporate. We started out back 14 years ago with oatmeal. Oatmeal, it was, like we thought a half a cup to 3/4 of a cup of oatmeal. We had a plant-based milk with that. We just ate maybe a piece of fruit and maybe some coffee or tea. And that was our breakfast pretty much. And then we went to some seminars in Portland and they fed us greens. for breakfast or brunch. And this is kind of odd having greens this early in the morning. But we started out with a small little leaf, one leaf of romaine lettuce, because I couldn't stand the bitterness of kale at that time, but my taste buds have changed. And then we progressed to a larger leaf of kale and a larger leaf. And then we went to chard and because my wife liked the color or something, or read that that was a healthy thing. And then I read about collard greens. I didn't even know what they were, but I learned that a cup of collard greens had 250 milligrams of calcium in it. And wow, we wanted to get enough calcium in our diet. I had just finished watching the Greger video on supplemental calcium puts people at increased risk of heart attack and stroke when you take large doses of calcium. So it's best to get it from your food. So I thought, wow, we're going to incorporate this collard green into our life. All right. So what do you see here for half of our breakfast? You see, look at the fruit. That's pretty obvious. There's berries up there. Those are blackberries, but it's usually a half a cup to 3/4 of a cup of blueberries every morning we have. They're usually frozen, but when they're in season, they're fresh. And then you see we split an orange. This is one half of our, my share or her share, half of an orange, maybe a half of a cutie, maybe a strawberry or two, a few grapes, just for the fun of it. Now, do you have to do all these things? No, but we actually enjoy spending time together in the kitchen now. That wasn't always true of me. I could hardly boil water, but I have incorporated this into my life and I enjoy it now. So if you think this is too much effort, I get it. You don't have to do everything that's on here. But I just wanted to show you a variety of many things that you could do. And these tastes, my mouth is watering right now every time I look at those pictures and I say, okay, what's underneath there? There's some beans, there's some nuts and seeds, there's some sprouts, there's some greens, there's some purple, whatever that is, lettuce, radicchio. There's some tomatoes perhaps, or peppers. There's jicama, that's white. And then there are things that are hidden underneath. What's hidden underneath? Let's do the next slide and see if we can figure it out. Oh, that's a little slightly different breakfast, but it's very similar. You see the sprouts and the beans and the jicama and there's purple cabbage down below on the lower one now, along with the different color radicchio and the spinach leaf that's poking its head out of there and the tomato. Okay, we each eat about that much. I like my fruit together in the bowl. My wife does not. She likes to put it in the groats or the oats that she's going to be eating, and you'll see that in a bit. Next slide. So this is the second half of our breakfast. This is a fairly good amount, at least a cup of oatmeal, or we use groats, which is the form of oats that the groat is what's harvested off the plant before the steel blade comes down and cuts it and makes it steel cut oats. So we cook this up in an Instapot. It takes 24 minutes for us, but if you like it a little softer, you can go to 40 some odd minutes. 40 minutes, Scott likes his. So you have a wide variety of your tastes. Get to dictate how long you want to cook this. And then we've recently, my wife was just adding a little cinnamon one time about maybe a month ago, and the lid came off and it dumped in a bunch of cinnamon into the pot of groats that we were making. And so she took out a lot of it, but the next day when we had the groat, she says, hey, this is pretty good. So she's been incorporating a couple tablespoons of cinnamon with the groats when we make them, with a bit of salt, I think a teaspoon. It lasts us 5 days, that amount for the two of us. And what is on top of the groats? You see there's some funny looking colors there. There's that black stuff. That's chia seeds. And mixed in with those is some flax seeds, a tablespoon of that. And there's some hemp seeds, like Tamara says she likes to do, and some wheat germ, half a teaspoon or something like that. And we go on this kick sometime. Gregor mentions it. We want to know what it's like. So let's try it and see. It's not that you have to do this. It's just that it's been fun for us. And you see, Tamara mentioned goji berries. Well, there they are. And we've been eating them. And then he came up with barberries, and I didn't know what they were. So we bought some of those, and now we've replaced the gojis with the barberries. And we're going to go back to the goji berries at one time because they're less expensive. She likes raisins. I eat them separately in the afternoon. Okay, next. So what does my wife do? While I'm kind of preparing half the bowl, she's steaming. She likes steamed greens. I like raw greens. So we compromise. I eat half of her steamed stuff, and she eats half of her greens that are raw. And so what does she steam? She likes her broccoli steamed. I like mine raw. So we separate that out. Broccoli price, you may have noticed, has gone up sky high with inflation. It's like it used to be, what, $1.50, $2 a pound? This was not back in 1960. It was just a couple years ago, or maybe a year ago. It's been up to $5 a pound. And that's more than my budget wants to tolerate. So we've been buying some frozen broccoli, which is getting back down to the $3 a pound range. So there's broccoli, about, I don't know, 3/4 of a cup. She chops up some carrots. We each eat a mushroom a day. And if you see, there's a little different color here than green. It looks brown. And those are strips of dulse. That's the sea vegetable I talked to you about. You can do dulse or wakame or nori sheets. They have not only omega-3s, but they also have what? They have iodine in them. So, and then you see on the bed underneath there, she wraps up now. We progress from that 1 leaf a day to 2 leaves of kale and 2 leaves of collard greens and a leaf of chard and maybe some, I don't know, dandelion green she's added. We don't go in our yard and pick the dandelion greens. We buy them at the market. But actually, they taste okay. You know, they don't have the dog pee on them. If you get them from the yard, you have to worry about that. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. So this is what it looks like. She rolls this up and takes the big knife, chops it up, and she's taught me how to do it so I can even do this, and chop it up. You know, cut off the end of the stems that look a little old, and, you know, we want to eat healthy food. Okay, next. And then this is what I've been preparing. The radicchio and maybe a strawberry there and a few little baby tomatoes. And then you see some little mung beans that I like to grow. Why do I grow them? It's fun and it tastes good. You know, you don't have to put them, you cook them up. You can eat them raw. It only takes 2 days to grow them. And if anybody wants to learn about sprouting, radish sprouts and broccoli sprouts and mung bean sprouts and pea sprouts, they're really fun taste thrills. And it takes a little longer to do the sprouting of the broccoli and the radish, like 4 days for one and 5 days for the other. But boy, mung bean sprouts, 3 days, and you have their little tails that are about an inch long. It's really fun. Next slide. So the bowl is growing because in the radicchio leaf, we put in a half a handful of spinach and a half a handful of arugula. On top of that are the sprouts, the radish, and the broccoli. This could exhaust you if you're not used to doing this. It took us a long time to get to this point, but is it fun? Yeah, it's fun to do. It's colorful, and my mouth's watering as I'm telling you about it. And once these are done, next slide, my wife puts in the beans and she puts on the greens that are steamed up. And then she adds maybe a few pumpkin seeds. And for fun of it, she puts the flour not in her hair, but in the bowl. These are nasturtiums. And, you know, that's just for the fun bowl. And you see there's some, what's that? It's turmeric or curcumin. She adds like a quarter of a teaspoon into our bowl, and then she adds balsamic vinegar onto it. And now she's decided to add a little bit of that, I don't know, black sesame seeds and let's see, some other spice. I don't know. I can't keep track of it anymore. The yellow stuff on there is curcumin or turmeric.
Like beans.
They look like beans.
Yeah.
Oh, those are pumpkin seeds, I think. I think they're darker pumpkin seeds and lighter seeds. I don't know. We'll have to ask her next time. Next slide. You can make some muffins occasionally. We tell you try to eat as much whole plant food as you can, but hey, there are times you just have a hankering for a piece of bread or for a muffin or whatever it might be. And so she's made these bran muffins and puts a nut on the top of it just for fun of it. Next. Okay, so here she's making a meal. There's rice in the middle. There's beans on the side, the good old rice and beans. It's easy to make. You don't have to do a lot of cooking. You open up a can if you want, if you don't like to make your own beans. But making your own beans can be a real treat. I never knew this. I'm so used to the can. I can open a can and dump it in and heat it up. But man, when you open the beans that are fresh out of the bin and you cook them yourself in the Instapot, I'll get to there in a second. And then what you could do is add some of these dehydrated veggies and add another little spices that you like. Better than bouillon, teaspoon of that in there. And pretty soon, man, those beans have a flavor that make my mouth water now. Yes, there's a question.
Someone was asking if these are steamed veggies.
So the veggies, the broccoli here is not steamed. The greens, the dark green over here is the steamed vegetable underneath there. It's about a cup is what it steams down to. 2 cups steams down to 1 cup for each of us. Okay? What? And it's served warm. Yes, with the beans, which are served warm. So there's warm and there's cool. And somehow they make it together and our taste buds are used to it. Okay, good question. Next one. Okay, so you put all those things together, the mise en place it's called. You put them together, the rice and the beans, and you add the greens. Tamara adds the greens first sometimes second. And then you add salsa onto that. And what's missing? It's the fruit. But it's coming because it's dessert. It's so sweet now because we're not eating those artificial or the highly sweetened foods. We choose not to. It's not that we can't eat it. We just choose not to torture our tongue by avoiding eating the really sweet stuff like honey. Honey is fine if you like a little bit in your tea and if that's just what makes you happy. But what makes me happy now is the grapes and the strawberries and the bananas and the apples and the mango. They're so sweet now because I don't have those big blasts of artificial sweeteners or the really, really sweet stuff. Okay? That doesn't mean you don't have the ability to eat whatever you choose. Next. Okay, let's look at this plate and see what we have here. We have green beans, which is a vegetable. We have corn, which in this case is the vegetable. We have some more vegetables up above there, some more greens. And then what do we have? Do we see any beans here? The legumes? Where is that? Hummus. Yeah, so a quarter cup of hummus is a serving of your legumes. You're looking for 3 servings a day. And then do we have whole grain here? Yeah, it's the bread. It's not, it's a whole grain bread. So, okay, what's missing from this? Fruit. Okay, I want you to keep getting that idea. It's fruit. That tends to be left out in a lot of people's thinking about what are healthy choices. And by the way, the calorie density of these foods, like Scott has talked to you about or will talk to you about, is so low for most of these foods that if one of those rolls with hummus is not enough, you're still hungry, eat another one. You don't have to starve yourself by eating this way. And look at how much of the plate has vegetables on it. Next slide. These are colorful. These are tasty. There are potatoes sliced up on a mandolin slicer, and wear a glove, a Kevlar glove, so you don't get your hand sliced. I bought one. It works well. And then you can make them so you have scalloped potatoes. And then look at the beans up there. And then the greens over there. So what's missing from this plate? The fruit, and what else? There's something else missing. Whole grains are missing from here. So think, if you start getting your mind thinking, what could I do as a whole grain? What could I do as a bean? What could I do as a vegetable? What could I do as a fruit? This becomes pretty easy. And it makes sense, actually. Next slide. Do you like the colors? Yeah, so do we. A lot of greens. Let's take potatoes. So easy. You don't have to become a chef to make a really tasty potato and make your mouth water. You throw it in the microwave, you cut it in half or you cut it open. You throw in a legume, either hummus, or you throw in a bean. I don't know. I guess you could throw in rice, quinoa. You could do whatever you want. You don't have to make it a special cooking treat, but this works. You could put salsa on that if you wanted to, or leave it off. And then we get up to tofu. So there's the beans. Oh, there's 2 types of beans here. There's the legumes. There's tofu, and then there is hummus. And then look at, there's several different kinds of veggies here. What's missing? Fruit is missing, and what else? Do we see any whole grain here? No. So you say, maybe I could eat a little whole grain if I'm still hungry. I'll find a little whole grain. Maybe there's some oatmeal or some muesli, or maybe there's some rice I could add to this to make this so I'm getting enough of what I want in life. Next. There it is, whole grain, a little slice of bread. There's that potato with the hummus. Here's the beans down here. Oh, there's 2 servings of legumes there. And then the greens and the veggies fill up half the plate. Next. These are potatoes mixed with avocado, mixed with I don't know what else, but it's so mouth-watering I can hardly stand talking to you about it. There is the bed of greens and the tomatoes. Next. Oh, we're getting into panned roasted veggies. I never knew what a treat they were until I became plant-based. It was like, you boil a vegetable or you eat it raw, but to heat it up, you could take this purple cauliflower and roast it. You can roast cabbage. You can roast zucchini. Next slide. There's how you do it. You just take a pan, you put in a sheet of parchment paper so you don't have to put any oil on anything. You don't have any sticking to the pan. You put it in the oven, I don't know, 20 minutes, 25, I don't know how long it takes exactly, but about that long. And if you cut it thin enough, it'll cook. If not, you have to cook it a little longer. And those are so tasty. We eat half the first day, and by the second day, we use it as a leftover, and it tastes really good. Okay, next. You add it with tofu, and we use an air fryer. It seems to come out magnificently, and I'm not sure exactly how to keep it from getting too dry if it's pan fried, but we can talk about that. Maybe you could roast it in the oven so it gets more even flow. Maybe putting in the pan is too much, or maybe the kind of tofu. Next. This is that tofu. That's vegetables are thrown in, and it's whipped around in your little blender guy and put in a pot, and you got this pie. What's it called? A quiche. Yeah, so you can make quiche. It's so easy to make quiche, and it's so tasty, and you can put in any spices you like. And by the way, red peppers are really a good treat. A regular pepper is good, but you can put in tahini is a Mexican spice. You can use Asian spices and curries and spices I've never heard of and haven't yet tried. So whatever you like to try, you may find, wow, this is really good. I like it. Next. For those who are missing pizza, you can even have pizza in your life. I mean, my wife makes the pizza crust on her own. It's a whole wheat pizza crust. She uses a marinara sauce. And the things she puts on it, I don't miss the cheese. There are artichoke hearts, and there are onions and garlic and olives and peppers and zucchini, and you can add whatever you want onto this. And it's like mouth watering. My mouth, I'm trying to keep from gurgling. I do have to swallow occasionally. Next. Okay, there's the pizza the next day. You have leftovers for about 3 days when you make a pizza, if you really want to do it. Next slide. You see the plate is half green and veggie though still. And then there's that potato, the sweet potato. And then there's the legume. And what's missing here? 2 things. The fruit and the whole grain. So we tend to leave out the whole grain a lot. We've eaten it other times of the day. We get 2 servings with our groats every morning. So we're just 1 serving behind. So sometimes for dinner, we don't have that 3rd serving of whole grain, but we try to get our vegetables in all the time. Next, and our fruit. And that you see, here's another kind of couple bowls. Next slide. I got to get through these. Next slide. This is where Tamara said you can just take that tofu and whip it up. And if you want to taste like eggs, if you wanted to make this like an egg stir fry and make it a fake egg stir fry, all you need to buy is a salt. I think it's masala salt. You just sprinkle a little bit of that in there and you've got the egg flavor for your family members who say, I want my eggs. I can't do this without eating eggs. I'll get the meat's okay. I don't need that. I don't need the dairy, but the eggs, I'm not giving up. Okay, well, you dump in a little masala salt and you'll have your eggs with the tofu. Next slide. You can make your own veggie burgers with beans or with whole grains. Sorghum is a grain that works really well. Next slide. Am I a lucky guy? Yeah. I don't know what else I can say. I mean, here's the mise en place for let's see what she's made out of this. I think I got that together for her. Next slide. Oh, she made some burger and then she had these fries, which were air fried, sweet potatoes, other potatoes. Next slide. Okay, roasted veggies again and greens. Next slide. Next slide. This is at a potluck. This salad, kale salad, apple kale salad. It's like a mouth-watering treat. Next slide. Avocado occasionally. Next slide. You see the garbanzo beans in there. Next slide. Easy to put bowls together. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. You stir fries. Next slide. Oh, you can make soups and vegetable soups and, add beans in there and potatoes in there. And they're so easy to make, actually. Next slide. And then she searched for a chip, couldn't find one in the world, and wound up making her own out of these corn tortillas. Next slide. What's coming next? It's Mexican. What is the soup? Tortilla soup. I mean, next slide. And there's some more tortilla soup mix. Next slide. These are some snack foods. We all like to eat snacks at one time or another. And I took these to the medical student or to the students at OSU I gave a talk at. Said, you can snack on these foods. There's tiger nuts, which are a root vegetable. There's edamame, which you can buy. There's nuts, packages of nuts. There's packages of dried, like dehydrated food like raisins. There's even Larabars if you have to eat something on the go, like you're out camping. There's muesli, which Scott mentioned and has become my go-to in the afternoon. There's Mary's Gone crackers. That's as close a chip as we could find to a whole grain cracker if you have to have it with a little hummus dip with it. And it's highly addicting, though. Be careful of it. Next. And then if you want to grow your own sprouts, very easy. You just put the sprouts, you rinse them once in the morning, once at night. It takes so quick to do that. You turn it upside down, drain them out. And after about 4 or 5 days, you get a jar that looks like this. And you're like, hey, I'm growing my own food. Yeah. No distilled water. I'm using just the tap out of Eugene healthy water, whatever. If it's not healthy, okay. Next slide. And there was a time I went nuts. I was trying to eat a half a jar a day because of the sulforaphane. And I found I couldn't stuff myself that much. It just didn't work. And so now we've gone down to just that the jar lasts about 5 days for us. Next, I don't grow this often. But then these are the mung beans. Look how they grow their tails. It's kind of fun taking them out. Next. Garbanzo beans you can sprout. Next. You can grow your own sunflower seeds, but you need dirt. It takes longer and it's 10 or 12 days. And it's kind of a chore for me to spend that many days going out there and watering. I like to stay in my house where it's warm and grow the other sprouts. Next. Dehydrating apples and pears. And if you add a little cinnamon, you put them in the dehydrator, they're a treat. You snack on those things once in a while. It's really fun. Next slide. Even my dog knows she knew when she was alive the benefit of vegetables. That's broccoli and that are peppers. And she loved them and we loved her, but what can I say? All right. Yes, you have a question.
Usually with recipes, or did she make it up on her own?
So we have every cookbook known to mankind. I don't think she's read them all. She has this mind that I want to get this and I want to learn this and I want to learn this. She has gone now after a series of years of going through cookbooks. She now is Google this and Google that. You just go online and you'll find what you want without having to spend money, without having to buy. She does have a couple favorite cookbooks. Oh, She Glows is one of them. She likes Gregor's How Not to Die or Diet cookbook. What's that? Initially, she started with how to prevent and reverse heart disease. There's some recipes in the back of that book. And then I don't know what else she went to at that time. She was on her own. She just kind of would wing it. But, you know, a lot of this is just in our brain about whether we're good cooks or not good cooks. If we just have a little experience and have a little trial and someone's guiding hand like Tamara, you know, taking you through a class or 2 or 4 or whatever it takes, and you get some confidence that I can do this and you all could do it. The question is how important is the goal that you have set out for yourself? Either that goal is losing weight, or it's getting off of pills, or it's having more energy. If you keep focusing on that, this may not be such work for you. If you get a mindset that says, I'm doing this because I want to do it, I want to learn a new skill, it could be fun, as opposed to, oh, I have to do this. If you go in with I have to do it, it's going to be hard for you and maybe not be so successful. But if you go in it thinking, you know, I want to be 77 and jump up and down and have other people know how good the food tastes, then maybe it'll be easier for you. With that, are there any other questions? Kind of numbed you all. I try to be enthusiastic if I can. You've noticed? Do we have anything else to add tonight, Scott?
Cooking demonstration. So if you don't have a class scheduled, they're in the back for the rest. This is week 2 of 13, so stick around.
Thank you all for coming. Those online, thank you.
Yeah. Good job.
Just keep lying down fun.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
You're very welcome. Thanks.